Good morning, everyone. Happy Monday, and welcome back to another Wake Up with YPN. I'm Jonathan Fell, your 2025 chair of the Iowa City YPN for the Iowa City Area Association of Realtors. And today with us, we have Mackenzie Deroo from the Greater Iowa City organization. She is the Senior Director of Advocacy there. And today, Mackenzie is going to be talking with us a little bit about their 2024 Johnson County Voter Guide, as Election Day is very quickly coming upon us. So before we get started, and I welcome Mackenzie officially, I want to give a shout out to our episode sponsor, US Bank, for sponsoring today. And with that, let's get going. So, hi, Mackenzie. How are you doing?
Hi, Jonathan. Thanks so much for having me this morning.
Of course, absolutely. Thank you for joining us. So to start out, could you tell us a little bit about your job and what you do with Greater IC, and maybe a little bit about what led you there?
Absolutely. So my role is the Director of Advocacy, and I like to think of my job as sort of two pillars. So the one is we have our public policy work. So really trying to connect with elected officials at the local, state, and federal level to find ways to work collaboratively on behalf of the community, and particularly our business community. The other part of my work, which I also love, is we have several leadership programs, including our community leadership program, which has been around since 1990. That's really about training the next generation of leaders and plugging them into what's happening in our community. And so I also get to work with those groups as well.
Very nice. So today, as we kind of alluded to, we want to get a sense of, or a summary of, what the 2024 voter guide contains and why it's such a great tool for folks in our area.
Absolutely. So Greater IC, and in our previous iteration when we were the Iowa City Area Chamber of Commerce, has been putting together a voter guide for a long time now. We are a nonpartisan organization. We don't endorse candidates, but our role really is we want to make sure that people are educated about what's on their ballot when they go to vote, and they know the candidates who are running and what they stand for, particularly as it relates perhaps to the business community. I have to give credit. We have a wonderful intern, Hannah, who put together this guide for us, and she worked really hard on it. Inside, you will find sort of a front page that's just voter information, how to look up your polling place, what are the hours, what type of identification you would need, information about checking if you're registered or how to register to vote. And then from there, we go and start to look at specific issues and candidates that are on the ballot. So this year, you'll find there is a two-sided ballot, so make sure you flip and look to the back. But there are two constitutional amendments, as well as here in Johnson County, a conservation bond. And then there will be, you'll find after that, candidates that are running for a specific office. Candidates get asked a lot of questions, and we want to make sure that our guide is one that they participate in. And so it's important that we really prioritize the questions we ask them. We know there's lots of things that they decide on and that are important to our community. But really, when we worked for our questions, we wanted to know sort of what their priorities were as it related to the business community, and also for them to provide an example of a time that they've worked with someone they disagree with, because we really think that civility and collaboration are important in politics. Our organization stands by that, and we want to make sure that our elected officials do as well.
That's great. That's great. So kind of background, Greater IC, or in past incarnation of the chamber, producing this for a while. This is something that we've done for quite a long time. And I know that you kind of touched on this, but that voter guide in the beginning, some of these dates have already passed, but we're talking like this gives us a list of confirming where and how you're registered to vote. We can register to vote day of,
Exactly,
which
yeah.
we figured out. But you can also get a sense of, is there a way to view the ballot, all that kind of stuff as part of this?
Absolutely. So the Johnson County Auditor has a wonderful website. So if you have any questions, they'll have a link to it. But included on there is a great map. And so essentially what you do is you type in your address, and then it will list out specifically for you your precinct where you go to vote. And then it will show you what your ballot actually looks like and which candidates are on your ballot. So if you don't know off the top of your head, if you live in District 90 or something, you just type in your address, and then it will show you the candidates that are running for state office, as well as everything that's on your ballot.
Amazing. And you also touched on this is where you can find information about your polling place, the hours of that. I assume there's information about, what kind of identification do I need to bring with me to the ballot, to my polling place.
Absolutely.
Yep. And then bonds and amendments. So you said we've got two sides this year. Can you tell us what type of information you provide on some of that sort of stuff?
Sure. So again, one issue that you're going to see will be the last issue is the conservation bond. So in 2008, Johnson County passed a conservation bond that essentially set aside taxpayer dollars to purchase land for public use. So if you've enjoyed the Sutliff Bridge access or Two Horse Farm or the Clear Creek Amana Conservation Trail, a lot of really awesome bike paths were built with those funds that the public set aside. Now on the ballot is the opportunity to sort of continue that work and re-up the conservation bond. And so that's up for vote. It will need a supermajority or 60% to pass. The other two things that are on the ballot are constitutional amendments, and those will be across the state. And those really have to do with the sort of gubernatorial line of succession, as well as changing or updating some language about voting to align with current practices. So we have some information in the guide itself. The Gazette newspaper has also run some articles in the past week, particularly about the constitutional amendments, that I would recommend you checking out if you have questions.
Perfect. And then you mentioned this about the candidates themselves that are running. You ask about times when they've worked, with someone they disagree with, and how they answer this question and what goes into their profile. I assume you send out this information prior to this coming out. You don't just glean this information, or whoever is putting this guide together. You don't glean this information from interviews necessarily. You're asking specifically that sort of thing, right?
Correct. We email all the candidates and ask them to submit answers to these two questions, as well as a headshot and information about how you'd find out more about their campaign. Typically, the voter guide, we start the process even as early as August, start collecting information by the end of September, then we start doing the design work. So it's a multi-month process, but it's something we're really proud of and we think is really important. And we do it every year. So it'll look different next year. When it's local elections, we'll be talking to people running for city council seats. So there's always something that will be coming out. It just will look different year to year depending on what type of election.
Absolutely. And I definitely think it's super helpful. I've used it in the past myself. And even so far as some of the folks that, we had been chatting a little bit before we went live, some of the things that maybe we don't have some information on, you might have a resource for us to kind of help get a more robust opinion of some of the names we might see on the ballot that might not be in the voter guide.
Absolutely. So as we've talked about, it's a two-sided ballot, so it's really important to flip the ballot. And in addition to seeing those constitutional amendments in the conservation bond, you'll also see a list of judges that are up for retention. And so we are not necessarily the experts on the judicial system, but luckily the Iowa State Bar Association is. And so they come out with sort of a ratings guide, even where they go through each judge and include a profile, and then have surveyed other attorneys about sort of the quality of their responses and judgments. So that information is super helpful. I use it personally. It's what I share with my friends when they ask, like, hey, I don't know about these judges. So we can include that in that guide as well as you think about, names on the back of the ballot.
Absolutely. And we'll link to some of these in our comments after today, so folks can see those. Where can I get one of these guides, Mackenzie?
Absolutely. So the voter guide is on the Greater IC website. You can find it there. There should be a post at the bottom that's a news story. We've also included it in several emails. If you don't have it, you can also just email me, Mackenzie at greateriowacity.com, and I will get it to you today. So whatever it takes, please let us know. We want to make sure that you feel informed and confident going to the polls.
Amazing. As we do kind of get wrapped up here today, is there anything that you want to make sure we touch on before we kind of let you get on with your day? Anything we missed?
No, I would say we've covered it. The biggest thing I would say is, of course, vote, make your voice heard. The system does work. when people participate, but even beyond voting yourselves, there are tons of people who are working as poll workers who are making the system work on a really busy election day. So when you cast your ballot, make sure you flip it over, vote the back, and thank a poll worker too, because they're there making sure that we can all make our voices heard.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think that's definitely a big thing that sometimes, more often than not, I bet gets overlooked. But thank you for reminding us of that as well. And then just to reemphasize, if someone is not registered to vote, they can still go to their polling place and register day of, even tomorrow, correct?
Absolutely. Bring your in the front of the voter guide will have option voter ID. You know, it could be a driver's license, but there are also other options for personal identification. So have that with you. But yes, you can still vote registered day of.
Perfect. Kayla just wanted to say great information and thank you. So if we don't have any other questions, Mackenzie, thank you so much for your time this morning. We are going to be having a link to the voter guide as well as the other judicial information that you had talked about. So all of those will be in the comments after the interview. And otherwise, thank you so much for all the work you all do to make this a accessible process for everyone in our area. That's really, really appreciated.
Absolutely. Thanks for the time this morning.
Yeah, thanks, Mackenzie.